Okay, that's a deliberately inflammatory title riffing off calls to defund the police. What do I actually mean? I mean that the threat of desubsidisation should be held over universities. Universities engage in subsidised speech, and while the government should have no business in preventing private actors from speaking in terms of the words they are using themselves, there also must be an extremely high threshold for justifying its business in promoting and funding speech. There is no right to receive money from the public to fund your speech. Therefore, in all state-run education, courses must be highly justified on the basis of providing utility to the public, and in all private-run education that receives copious subsidisation, which is a great deal of them, public funding should be justified on that same basis. Indeed, this is natural to all government-funded institutions and all usage of public funds going to private entities. The taxpayer should have representation. I think that intersectional ideology is very damaging to our society and that it has fostered attitudes that are without a doubt anti-white. Now, white nationalists often say that demographics are destiny, but if you're someone who actually values the societal contributions of non-white persons, you'll probably draw attention to the fact that our society subsidises and institutionalises race baiting along intersectional lines, in which white people are a prime racial target, along with the gendered sexuality and sex axes aiming at the cis, the straight and the male. The types of people who went by names like classical liberal or skeptic in the past have responded to the demographic destiny argument by saying no, it's actually the ideology, as if to say that the one debunks the other. The reality is that if you hold anti-white attitudes constant and then have a demographic shift towards the non-white, then the consequences for white people will assuredly, without a doubt, become much worse. Demographics are destiny when intersectionality is culture. Therefore, if you don't want to end up pining for your very own Irania and your very own South African dystopia, you'll want to change people's minds and convert them away from a race-baiting attitude of equal outcomes and disparate impact, and towards an attitude of equality before the law and ordered liberty. Unfortunately, if all you do is try to convince the general public, you're fighting with one arm tied behind your back. The universities hold prestige as idea factories. Any ire you aim at the media ultimately has its roots in the universities. The reason your company is holding a diversity seminar is because it obeys the prestige culture of racial flagellation which has its roots in the universities. Attacking the branches without attacking the roots does nothing. Therefore, if you're against intersectionality, then you have to attack it at the university level. There's also no danger of harming free speech in the crossfire if what you're attacking is government funding either, as I previously explained. Universities in the UK are all supposedly independent from government, and yet only 5 such universities receive no government funding for tuition fees. Almost all of them receive public funds in the teaching process through block grants. Even in America, this is the case for universities that are supposedly private. Moreover, it is the government that certifies universities as possessing degree-making power. Therefore, government funding and legal privileges are a huge deal to all higher educational institutions. It's also the case that profit-making entities should pay their fair share of taxes. There are plenty of things to hold over them. Now, this is not a new proposal. Others have proposed this on YouTube in the past. But I am going to go further in saying that I think that this is the only thing that will ultimately pay dividends, and if any future Conservative Prime Ministers are listening, which is absurdly unlikely, I admit, I would urge them to have the fucking balls to withhold funding unless they remove all courses and course material which uses racialised language and or singles out an ethnic group or race as privileged or an oppressor. We must fight institutionalised racism, after all. Of course we are pro-education, so I would use budgetary reapportioning to refund other courses from the money that would have otherwise gone to useless divisive crap. That roots around the whole argument that you're an anti-intellectual barbarian that wants to burn the books, and I would bring that up every single time someone tried to make that argument. And I'm very serious about this. If you want a ghost of a chance of not having the West devolve into segregation and depression at best, and outright racial pogroms at worst in about 40 years, then this is the route you have to go down. We need to do it in the UK, and other Western countries need to do the same thing. British Conservatives need to let go of their respectability fetish, and American Conservatives need to stop vaguely gesturing at the Constitution and natural rights, and they need to launch this attack on the key idea factories of society. Other things are still worthwhile to do, but they are supplemental. This should be the main thing that anti-intersectionalists of all stripes are calling for. We need to focus and multiply our energies in this area. This is the only way to do the job. Anything less cannot wound the beast.